So I thought I would talk about written orders. I will be talking, or my intent here anyways, is to be talking primarily about written orders in the real world, in practice, and then the background intent is to just consider how real world written orders might be implemented in military simulation games. Up front, I should say that this game, Main Battle Area, Modern Tactical Combat in Europe, published by Omega Games, is the only game that I can think of that I have firsthand experience with that are, I should say, tabletop, map and counter war game that has written orders in a way that is directly analogous to my own personal experience. So moving away from Main Battle Area, MBA, which is basically contemporary superpower conflict. Clearly I should mention that from what I have seen so far of the Civil War Brigade series, Dean Essig, the Gamers, the Civil War Brigade series implements written orders that is fairly analogous to my past historical studies of that era, of that historical era. And then, of course, Tactical Combat series Tactical Combat series. Also, Dean Essig, the Gamers, implements written orders in a way that is, again, fairly analogous to Western U.S. Army / Marine Corps doctrine. So these are all examples of war games that have implemented written orders in a way that is, I guess, immediately familiar to me from my training, education, and experience. So far away from the world of military simulation games, what is my experience that I'm referring to? Well, as it turns out, I have years of an extensive experience with written orders. When I was an enlisted soldier, enlisted infantryman with the 101st Airborne Division, it was standard practice in the 101st when I was there that squad leaders issued written orders. Squad leaders issued written orders. So the organizational emphasis was on written orders all the way down, obviously from the top all the way down to the squad leader level. And incidentally, I think of my experience as a infantryman receiving a written order from a squad leader. Now, understand, written order here meant as a squad, 9 soldiers, huddled under a tree. The squad leader has written an order in a notebook, a little pocket notebook. He has written a full 5-paragraph operation order, and he issues that order. It's a written order. He issues it verbally. We as soldiers were expected, the expectation was we had paper, pen, and recorded. We were taught and trained to record the key information. So that's what I mean by a written order. And this is, again, this was expected in the most extreme, austere field conditions. It didn't matter. That was the organizational expectation. So when I think about how this might be used in a war game, I would say probably, well, the thing that comes to mind is the so-called scenario briefing, which for some echelons, I find it kind of funny that war games use scenario briefing. That's not, well, anyways. No, if you have a squad level war game, the scenario briefing, the scenario card, the whatever situation card, whatever you want to call it, that could be given very easily as a 5-paragraph operation order. I am sure, well, no, I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure. But I'm thinking that some war game has thought about this. So I'm not saying it hasn't been done, but I can't think of a game that does this. Not tabletop. Map and counter. I cannot think of one. But that's a obvious way to implement the 5-paragraph operation order at the lowest level. So we're talking about games where a counter is an individual soldier to fire team or squad. I mean, the scenario could be given in a 5-paragraph operation order format. Mission execution or situation, mission execution, etc. Makes perfect sense. Okay, so that is at the squad level. Then as a platoon leader in the 1st Infantry Division in Iraq, I issued written orders to my platoon, seemingly countless times, very regularly. So I'll be considering that again shortly. Then as a company commander, 10th Mountain Division in Afghanistan, again issued written orders to the company. Then again as a company commander, I was the lead author, primary author of numerous battalion, task force operation orders and morning orders. And then it goes up from there. I mean, contributing to and or lead author of orders at corps level, etc. But that gets so, I won't talk about that level. I won't talk about above battalion level. Not because I don't have the experience, but just because it's so difficult when you get to those levels. It's difficult to see continuity between your individual input, your individual input and the actual execution or implementation of the order. Again, the cycle is broken as far as being able to see it from beginning to end. At battalion level and below, I have extensive experience seeing written order, again, put together and all the way through execution. So construction, wargaming, refinement, publication, dissemination, execution, and review. Okay, so I've established what I mean by my personal experience with written orders. Basically, I came up through the ranks in organizations that, to one extent or another, adhered to the belief that you live or die by written orders. That's an expression, of course, but it was, I will say, throughout my platoon, company, and battalion experience, winning units operated off written orders. It was a mindset that units that mastered written orders tended to master, all of the key aspects of the art of war, such that they were better performing units. Okay. So looking at real world written orders, why do them? I mean, why did I issue written orders as a platoon leader? Why did I issue written orders as a company commander? This, of course, is beyond expectation. Of course, the expectation was there, but thinking back, why do it? Why do it? What were written orders doing? And when we look at the purpose of written orders, we can certainly look at it on different levels. I think, let's talk about one of the lower levels. Basically has to do with coordination. Again, in my experience, starting at the squad level, but certainly at the platoon level. I was a Bradley platoon leader, mechanized infantry platoon leader, and you have so many, as a mechanized infantry platoon leader especially, you have so many basically moving pieces. You have so many components, so many weapon systems, so many supporting systems, communication systems, etc., etc. Basically, you have so many components making up your warfighting functions, all within a single, 35 to 44 soldier platoon. And to operate effectively, coordination of all of that is essential, and a written order is a huge step towards properly coordinating all of that. So, coordinating means all the elements of the organization, understanding the routes, rally points, the meaning of different signals, etc., etc. Kind of all the nuts and bolts, so to speak, of operations. Written orders quickly, efficiently, and accurately coordinate all of that. that is what I think. I've played MBA, Main Battle Area here. This is the cover of my edition, the edition that I have from Omega Games. I've played the basic level of this game. There are several levels to this game. I've played the first level to get a taste of the basic mechanics. So I haven't gotten yet to the full-blown written orders level of this game. I will, but at the moment, well, so from the moment I opened Main Battle Area for the first time, pulled out the components, when I saw this, what they call a U.S. Battalion Task Force Offensive Unit Planning Chart, it was chilling to see how much this resembles the matrix orders that we used in the 1st Infantry Division when I was a platoon leader. So back to that coordination level of written orders. I guess bottom line is there is no reason why the coordination level can't be implemented in war games, other than it entails some extra levels of information recording and checks. But what does it mean, bottom line, in a war game sense? I do believe, I am convinced, I don't know how, I'm not saying I know how best to implement this in a war game context, but I am utterly convinced that you have let's say a company team going against a company team. The side that has coordinated nothing going against an opponent that has coordinated everything, all other things being equal, the force that has coordinated everything from fire support to logistical issues to fire control, that force, again, all things being equal, should be hugely more effective. So however that might be implemented in a war game sense. But that's just one level of looking at the purpose and impact of written orders. At a higher level, conceptually, written orders convey intent. Of course, it's commander's intent in many parts of Western doctrine. But in game terms, we can just talk about intent. Meaning, again, in game terms, you have a force, you have a representation of a battlefield or operating environment or battle space. You're going to operate in that with those assets. Presumably you've been given aims, objectives, whatever, victory conditions. So written orders in a war game sense can be used to basically require players to visualize what they want to happen from beginning to end, and then shape play throughout. In accordance with what the players have decided their intent is. So in the most in the most blunt terms, in a war game, you're given a mission to clear a route from village of Leiboltz here to Ufhausen here. The mission is to clear this route. And then in game terms, you might go through something like this, right? You'd be given the opportunity to identify this low rise as an objective, this peak as an objective. Again, given the opportunity to define routes, and missions, tactical mission tasks along the way. So maybe, a support by fire position here, a route, support by fire position, a route, whatever. And then add to that special tasks like route clearance or whatever. So once a player has planned all that, basically, then as you execute, units that are executing something that has been planned, execute that easier, more smoothly, more quickly in general. By the way, you wouldn't have to make it, exact. It could be a die roll that gives you strong modifiers for operating faster, more efficiently, more effectively, if it's according to plan. And then you could have how well units operate off plan. And here's where you could show forces that emphasize, higher levels of initiative at lower levels, etc., etc. This is what. Oh, so you are given the opportunity to plan all of this from beginning to end, and I guess as a corollary, if a player says, "I'm not planning anything, I'm just going to act," I guess in game terms you could say, okay, you can do that, but your force would be, tentative might be too hard of a word, but if you say, okay, I'm not going to plan anything, I'm going to react to everything, then again, all things being equal, your force should be trounced by an opponent who has planned everything. So the defenders planned battle positions, engagement areas, TRPs, blah, 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 blah. And if you go through to clear your route and you've chosen to plan nothing, you just say, okay, I'm going to, go by the seat of my pants, react to everything. Again, there could be a snowballing effect of not being able to react fast enough to an opponent who is operating by plan. Okay, and then of course you could have stuff for handling, again, deviating from the plan. But this by necessity, I would say by necessity, this would involve constant reference to the plan. Like, so Bravo Company was supposed to take this objective and establish a support by fire position. It has a route. So as you move each component of Bravo Company, there would be some checking of whether it's operating by plan or not. And hands down, TCS does this. TCS does this well. But TCS is I think, a design approach of players wanting to execute a plan. I'm thinking more of a game that basically allows you to, if you don't want to plan anything, and basically you just want to, I guess it should be a valid player approach to say, this is my force here. We have this objective. At the end of the day, or the end of the game, if we've achieved our objective, we've achieved our objective, and that should be recognized. But I guess it should be a valid player approach to say, this is my force. It has a certain level of initiative, and maybe the player says, I think my force has enough initiative and competence and proficiency and assets that we are just going to bowl through and go by the seat of our pants and react to everything. But yeah, again, in game terms and in game mechanics terms, units, I still see units operating better as they move according to plan. So again, in the most blunt terms, if a platoon of Bravo Company is following the route, if the platoon is following the route, then it has certain capabilities, i.e., it has like its max movement allowance, right? And if it's moving against the plan or off the plan, and hasn't, let's say, compensated for initiative, then there should be penalties. Although not to emphasize that word too much, but there should be penalties, not because the penalties are just all the little things like the platoon leader. If the platoon leader is heading off this way and the route is this way, the penalties are along the lines of the platoon leader halting momentarily to double check what he's doing with hire, plus just moving off in a direction that wasn't planned. I mean so that platoon leader might be more cautious knowing that he's taking his platoon off in another direction. So, of course, it doesn't sound good when you look at it in the micro scale like that. But when you put it all together, all the units of Bravo Company and all the units of Alpha Company and all the units of Charlie Company, I guess of course, I am thinking of a lower level than TCS, I think. At least one level down from TCS. So where TCS emphasizes, I should say that TCS really emphasizes changing orders, orders acceptance, delay. What I'm imagining, and I don't know why I went down this specific route, but hey, I've started to go down this route. I'm actually more interested in a game where a design where the emphasis is on you devise your plan before the game, and you're basically executing the plan, and you might wind up deviating greatly from that plan. But what I'm thinking of doesn't really have a complete, orders redo cycle, or not a redo, but a whole nother order cycle. No, I'm thinking more of like again, a battalion or lower, executing one operation order, and then with whatever deviations are called for in execution, and how all that would be handled. Yeah, so that is, I think, a huge element of it. Back to the intent part. So if you as the player are able to plan an operation through an operation order that effectively coordinates all the actions that are going to take place in that play of the game as you try to achieve that objective. If all of that can be guided by an intent from beginning to end, the simulation game should show, it would be nice if it showed the advantages of doing that. And why is that? Is that because I guess that this is going to move me to my next point. It's like, why this isn't really in an abstract sense that this is, good. It has to do with, in part, and this is why I think a good game design that did this would be valuable, because it would show something. What I'm talking about here is, let's say again, a battalion task force has a mission to clear this corridor. The planning and so the planning, again, basically it should show the necessity of planning, again, for basically all of the efforts of all of the components that make up the battalion task force. In other words, if a war game just has a battalion task force that's a bunch of counters, infantry counters, armor counters, artillery counters, and it is a force, and it is a force made up of different kinds of pieces, but basically each piece has, basically fixed capabilities, right? Fixed capabilities. So you're just, lack of a better way of saying it, you're just kind of throwing your forces at the enemy. Now, of course, if the rules are done right, you can see the advantage of using artillery in a particular way and armor in a particular way, but it's still, what you're not getting is how each of those pieces, and I don't mean literally pieces now, but I mean pieces of the battalion task force, how each of the pieces of the battalion task force may operate better or worse depending on, actually it's dependent on many different factors, but in other words, through planning and through play as the command element of the battalion task force, there are things that you can do to make the pieces of your force individually more effective and more effective in concert. And if the design can bring that out, that is good in the sense that it is modeling and imparting some perspective on how that process works in the real world. Okay, what I mean is, I'm way overcomplicating this, but when you have a battalion task force that's just made up of 25 chits, 25 counters, and that's it, they all have fixed capabilities, then again, I still say, at the end of the day, what can you do? You can throw them at the enemy. What I'm saying is, if you take each of those 25 counters and you think of them as, an organization of human beings, what I'm saying is the tank counter that's back here, that's sitting here, again, you think of it as a cardboard counter with fixed capabilities, then it's like, hey, move out, attack, or whatever. If you think of that counter sitting on the map here as 20 to 40 soldiers with leaders, then think about the fact that if this tank counter, this armor counter here, platoon, if it doesn't know what's going on, if it doesn't know what's going on, if it doesn't know what it's supposed to do, then it doesn't matter that it has all this capability. It doesn't matter that it has all this observation capability, maneuver capability, fire capability. None of that matters. It's going to sit here because it doesn't know what it's doing, so to speak, is what I'm getting at. So if the game design can I guess maybe a way of putting it is, if the game design can emphasize that you have to give each of these pieces of the force, you have to give them the understanding, the purpose, right? You have to give them the intent of what you want them to do. That, again, that is good because it is illustrating something from real life. And now, ideally, although it's completely unwieldy and undoable, but of course, the best thing is, again, you have 25 pieces representing your battalion task force. If you could write out written orders with all the details, including contingency plans and everything for your whole operation, and do that for every single component, I mean, that it's unwieldy. It wouldn't work, but maybe through design, if that could be achieved another way, that would be one. That would be a success for simulation purposes, and two, I think it would bring out the purpose, the emphasis, the importance, and the role of written orders.